We acknowledge and respect the traditional custodians whose ancestral lands we are meeting upon here today. We acknowledge the deep feelings of attachment and relationships of Aboriginal peoples to country. We also pay respect to the cultural authority of Aboriginal people visiting or attending from other areas of South Australia and Australia present here. Okay. Right. I've just got one tip, and I might just mute people. So I'll just mute everyone. Because we are a fairly small group today, though, if you do have a question, please feel free to unmute and pipe up. Also, please feel free to use the chat. Just note that because it's just me today, sometimes I don't see a message in the chat. So if you have written something in the chat and I haven't responded, please do unmute and I can answer your questions. So one tip before we do get started, and that is if you're unfortunate enough to have just one screen, the first part of my session is very much me showing you some things. I don't expect you to be following along, but the second bit of the session is a bit hands-on. So you might want to split your screen, in which case you can use the Windows key and the right or the left arrow, and that will split your screen. Okay, so I will just start by sharing my screen. And we can get started. So this session today is all about Microsoft 365 and the different apps that are available to you as part of the department licensing. And then we're going to go into Teams. So the first place I like to start is at office.com. So this is the website where you can access all the apps. So Microsoft has apps that are web-based and also apps that are on your desktop. And the web-based app or the portal for the web-based app is www.office.com. So from here, what you get to see is all the documents that you are connected with somehow. So some of them might be documents that belong to you, but others might be documents that are in teams that you belong to. So for example, this one here, I've never seen in my life. However, it's posted in a team where I'm a member of that team. So that's why it's popped up there. From here, though, we want to have a look at all the apps that are available. And you can do that on the left-hand side by clicking on apps. And then from this screen here, if we click on all apps, we can see all the apps that are available to us in M365. Now I've got this admin that's popped up here. You won't see that. That's just because I'm in ICT services and I've got a few extra rights. So don't panic if you don't see that. But you should see all the other apps that I've got here. Now just note where it says other apps, these apps aren't necessarily available to you. They're just ones that Microsoft thinks are nice haves. So if some of these might not be available in our tenancy, but all of the apps that come under the Microsoft banner at the top are available in our tenancy. So to start off with, I'm just going to briefly talk about each of the apps that are available, and we go into a few so we can have a look at what they're about. So Bookings is quite a newish app. We haven't really talked about this one, or we don't normally talk about this one in our webinars, but it is quite handy in that you can set up scheduling. You can invite people from outside the department to book appointments at certain times. So it is quite a nice one if your school is looking for a way, for example, to set up parent interviews, for example. You could set up a parent interview page through Bookings. And what it is we've got a calendar and then a booking page where the parent can come in and find a time and add their details. So that's bookings. So I'll just go back to all apps. Calendar, again, I'm not going to go into this one here, but that's just your Outlook calendar. Class notebook, I will touch on when we get to OneNote. Excel, I'm not going to touch on today either, but let's have a look at forms. So forms, if you've ever used something like Monkey Survey or Google Forms, Microsoft Forms is Microsoft's version of Forms. When you go in, if you've never used it before, this will be blank. But if you've used it before, you'll find a whole lot of the forms that you've already created here. I'm just going to go into a couple of examples. And these examples you can also view from the training summary that I attached to the calendar invite. So one thing to know about Forms is that Forms is an app that you can share with people outside of the department. So for example, this one here is a registration form for canteen volunteers. So it's a form that I might send my parents because I want people to volunteer to help in the canteen. So you can see it's really simple. We've just got the person's name, and it's got a red asterisk because it's required, the child's name, what home group they are, and how often they can help. Now, if I put in several days a week, it's got something called branching, which then gets the person that's filling out the form to give me more information. If I've got daily or if I've got weekly, it gives me different information. Another example of a form here is a formative type form. Again, this form has got that branching. So this might be something that a teacher gives students to complete. And in this case, I've got my question, and if I don't get it correct, my teacher has put in some branching so that the second question gives me some more information, and then hopefully I can try it again. And this time I'm hopefully going to get it correct, which moves me on to the next question. I'm just going to go into the back end of forms again. So another really nice thing about forms is that it gives you a whole lot of data. So if I go into this one here, for example, because it's got quite a few responses. This is the editing phase. So if I wanted to change any questions in this form, I could go and do that in this view. And when I click on responses here, it gives me some really nice graphic data. So if I've got a question that's multiple choice, for example, it will give me a nice graph so I can quickly see straight away that most sites or most people that completed this just had one person attending this training. It will give me columns if I've got lots of multiple choice questions. It will give me word clouds as well. I don't think this one has a word cloud, but if it's a response where you want people to type in information, so a short answer text box, it will bring it in as a word cloud. Another nice thing about this is in real time. So if someone completed this form straight away right here, we'd see that response change to 116. And if I want to do more with the data, I can click on Open in Excel, which will open up in Excel in my OneDrive. And then I've got a whole lot of data there that I can use in a way that might be more helpful. And that's live as well. So again, if someone was to fill in that form and submit it, I'd see another row come in down the bottom of this Excel spreadsheet. It's all live. Okay, so that's Microsoft Forms, which is really helpful if you're wanting to collect responses from the wider community, but also if you're wanting to test your students, you can do quizzes that are self-marking as well. Or if you're wanting students to collect data, so if you're a primary teacher, there's a nice component in maths where you need students to collect data. Forms is a really nice way to do that. Okay, when you're in any of the Microsoft apps, what you can do is to get back is to click on the waffle at the top. So I'm just going to click there and I'm going to click on all apps. This isn't going to bring me back to my page, so I click on Microsoft 365 at the top there and go back this way. Microsoft is forever changing how things look. So every time you go in, something's a bit different. Okay, so let's move on. Lists I'm not going to talk about today, but lists are SharePoint lists. So they're a bit like Excel spreadsheets, but they live in something called SharePoint, which is Microsoft's kind of like library of organizing files. So it's what's behind Teams and a lot of the applications that Microsoft has. I will go into OneDrive though. So OneDrive is your online storage space. You have up to 1 terabyte of space in OneDrive that you can use, and we call it the Me space. So it is basically your personal workspace. It's for saving files that you are working on that you're not wanting to collaborate on. Now you can share files in OneDrive, and I'll just go to my OneDrive here. So you can see here all the little people icons indicate that there's a file in that folder that I've shared with someone, and you can see they're shared as well. So you can share files that are in your OneDrive, but we really do encourage you, if you're working collaboratively on something, that you don't store it in OneDrive, that you store it in Teams instead. Now, one of the reasons why is that your OneDrive space, your Me files, belongs to you. And if you happen to win the lottery and decide to quit your job, all those files would cease to exist unless you transferred them across to another storage place. And even if you've shared them with a colleague, that colleague will lose access to that file. So I might have worked on a really long document with my colleague. We've spent hours making sure it's all connected to the Australian curriculum. I win the lottery, I go, and my colleagues just lost all that work because the file lived in my OneDrive. So that's OneDrive is our Me space. Really, some really cool things about OneDrive. If you're a person that has or uses USBs, your OneDrive can replace USBs. OneDrive is accessible from all your devices. So your mobile phone, your iPad, your home computer, your work computer. You can also sync OneDrive to your computer. So I've got my File Explorer here. And you can see I've got OneDrive here and I've synced it. So all these folders here are exactly the same as these ones, so that I don't need to come and use OneDrive through the web. I can just access all my documents through my computer. So if you are using one computer, I do recommend that you look into syncing your OneDrive, because then you can save documents directly to the cloud. Another really nice thing about OneDrive is that it's got something called file or version history. So for example, if I had this document here, I opened it and it was completely blank, I could go in and do the version history, and this particular document's only been saved once, but if I've saved it multiple times, I can then restore a previous version. So again, that's really handy if you've got students that say they've worked on an assignment, they go to hand it up, it's blank. You can, if they've saved it in OneDrive, you might be able to restore a previous version. Another thing is that you can also see who has viewed the document. So this is a shared document. If I hover there, I can see that it's been viewed 14 times and it's just been viewed by myself and one other colleague. So that's handy if you're, say, you've written a document and you're wanting feedback from your colleagues, so you share the link to the document in OneDrive. You can check if all your colleagues have had a look at it. Okay, so that's OneDrive. Let's go back. Oops. And back into apps and all apps. Okay, so the next one we have a look at is OneNote. OneNote is one of my favorite apps. I haven't turned on reactions. Let me just turn on reactions. Oops. There we go. Okay, so if you can just give me a thumbs up if you've used OneNote before. Or if you can't see the reactions, if you just type in chat yes or no. Okay, I can see one person has at least. So OneNote can look a bit scary, Deborah, if you haven't ever seen it before. What it is an online notebook. It's available in a desktop app and also on the web. The web app and the desktop app do look quite different. So I'll go in and show you the web app first. So this is an example, and again, you can access this example afterwards from the link in the training summary. This is an example of how you might use OneNote for staff meetings. So here I've got my year as a section. I've got two subsections, term 1, term 2, and I've got agendas and meeting minutes. Oh, lots of people have, so that's really good. So if you have used it, some of this you might know already. But what's beautiful about OneNote is that I can have all my agendas here and I can go to them really quickly by just clicking on the different pages rather than having to open up a new document each time. Same with my minutes. I've got them all there and I can just flick between each of the weeks without having to go in and open new documents. OneNote has lots of things that you can do. You can embed videos if you're using them for teaching, so a class OneNote. There's all sorts of features that you have as a teacher. So you can there's a teacher only section where you can do your pre-planning and collaboration. There's a collaboration space which allows students in your class, if you've set up a class team, to all collaborate on the same document in the OneNote. And the content library, if you're using it for teaching, is where you put all the materials that you want to share with your students. And there's a whole lot of really cool features. So there's, where is it? It's not in the web version, it's in the desktop version, but there's a maths feature that will solve equations for you and also give students practice. So if you put in an equation, it will generate some practice questions for them as well. So that's OneNote. I use it. We'll bring this one up. So this is my personal one. So you can see that I've got lots of handwritten notes. I use it on my phone, so I write my notes in my notebook, take a picture directly into OneNote, and if I search in here, it will pick up what I've handwritten as well. So that's really handy. And you can see I've got lots of tabs at the top, which I use to organize all the different things that I'm working on. And then I've got my pages that I can split up down the side. So it might look a bit overwhelming if you've never used OneNote before, but it is a lovely way to organize all your work and all your notes and all your thoughts in one place. Okay, so back to all apps. Let's just close that one. Outlook I'm not going to go into because I know you guys are all familiar with that one. Planner is a way to kind of organize tasks, so I won't go into that one either. Power Automate allows you to automate certain processes. So for example, if you do create a form and you want something to happen when someone submits the form, so you want an email sent or you want their work to be recorded in a SharePoint list, for example, you can do all that through Power Automate. Power BI you might be familiar with. Unfortunately, with the department licensing, you don't have the ability to create dashboards to share with other people, but you do have the ability to create dashboards for your own personal use. So for example, in here, I've just got one that I've created around my training or our team's training, and I can see really quickly if I just want to find out what's going on with the Microsoft training, for example, I can just click in here and then straight away I can read that data really easily. So Power BI is one that I think teachers might get some use out of if you're really into data and you can export or import your data sets into Power BI. PowerPoint I won't go into, project I won't, Stream I'm going to mention. Has anyone used Stream before this year? If you can give me a thumbs up or say yes or no in the text. I'll just go into it. So it looked a bit different last year. It didn't look like this at all. So I'm glad that people are saying no, because if you did use it in the classic or the classic version of Stream, this is going to cease to exist at the end of this year. So any videos that you have on Stream Classic need to be brought across. So Stream on SharePoint, which is what you're seeing here, is basically a way to view any videos that you've got saved in the cloud or in Teams. So you can see here, all these, what Stream has done is it's just searched my OneDrive and my Teams spaces, and it's brought out all the videos that I have stored in these places. So if I'm searching for a video, I can just come into Stream and I can say, oh yeah, that's the one I was wanting, or oh yeah, that's the one, rather than having to remember where I've saved it. So that's Stream. You can also record directly into Stream. So if you're wanting to record videos, you can do screen recordings or you can record yourself on the side with a whiteboard. And you can do some limited editing in Stream, but you can also do things like closed captions. Okay, so that's Stream. And I think, well, there's two more that I'm going to mention. So Sway here, if you're not familiar with Sway, quite a lot of schools are using Sway now for their newsletters. So Sway is an online presentation tool. It's different from PowerPoint in that it allows you to collect some analytics around how many people have viewed your Sway, which is handy if you are sending out newsletters, and also in the fact that it's quite responsive. that means that if I'm viewing a sway on a mobile phone, Sway is going to recognize that my screen is small and it's going to adjust the content to fit that screen. So I'll show you a couple of examples. So this here is just a mock-up newsletter example. And again, you can go back and have a look at these. These are linked in that training summary. So on the full screen, it looks quite nice. You can see I've got these elements that come in. I don't need to be a graphic designer. I can just pick these things and there they are. However, if I'm viewing this on a phone and I make it small, you can see Sway's just doing a bit of a think, and you can see now it's adjusted it so that I can still see that writing. The headings still come in, but the pictures are organized differently so that I can see it on my phone. So that's quite nice. You can also do things in Sway like embed forms. So again, there's that form asking for volunteers that I've embedded straight in my Sway. So my parents can fill that out in my newsletter. You can also do things like stacks. So if I've got lots of community notices, I don't have to have 10 pages. I can just pop them in as a stack at the end there. I can also embed videos if I want as well. Just got another couple of examples of Sways I'll go through. So this is an example from a high school. Again, it's one we've mocked up, but Seaford, is it Seaford? Seaton, sorry, Seaton High School uses Sway for their student portfolios. One reason why you might is that you're able to share these with external people. So a student can create one of these a Sway with their work, their student portfolio, and they can share it with potential employees or a university or a college. Again, I can embed images, I can embed tables. I've got all these interactive elements that come in, and I can set this up as a template as well so that all my students complete something that's quite similar. Another example, this one's a horizontal Sway. This is one for a PD session. But again, you can see it's quite nice. You don't have to do a lot of thinking. You can just plonk in the different elements and then Sway will put it together for you. So I mentioned about the analytics. So I'll just go in and show you those quickly. So here is the back end of Sway. And if I go in here, so these are Sways that I own. So you can see this one here's had 10 views. I can see that 4 people read it quickly, 6 people read it in depth, and most people took about 4 minutes. I can see this one here has had 6,479 views. That's because it's about Minecraft and it's on Eddie. But you can see out of that, most people just glanced at it. A few people have read it quickly and only 300 people have read it in depth. So you get some nice analytics. You don't know who those people are, but it does give you more of an idea of your reach than if you were just sending out a PDF newsletter, for example. Students can also create Sways from a topic, which is a really nice feature if you're teaching report writing, because you can put in a topic and the Sway will put in the scaffolding for the student. It won't allow the student to do copy and paste, but it will give them an idea of what they could write in each section, and then they can go ahead and put those in their own words. Okay, so let's go back because I've got one more before I stop talking so much and we get into doing some doing. And that last one is whiteboard. So Whiteboard is a fairly new app. When I was in the classroom, I used OneNote as my whiteboard. And I think if I was back in the classroom, I would continue using OneNote as my whiteboard. However, Whiteboard does have some really cool features. And if you're not a OneNote person, you might be a whiteboard person instead. So Whiteboard is simply a whiteboard. These are all my whiteboards that are saved. They save automatically. So every whiteboard that you create will be saved unless you go in and delete it. So I'll just do a new one. When I'm in here, I've got a whole lot of things that I can just pull out and use. So if I wanted to put some notes on, I could do that and then just type away. But what the main attraction I think is these templates. So there's a whole lot of pre-built templates in there for you to use. And if you go to the learning category, there's a whole lot of templates that we might, as teachers, want to use. So for example, KWL, if I bring that one out there and make my screen bigger, that's already there to go. I don't have to worry about creating it. It's there to go, and I can just get students to add to that right on the spot. So they're worth exploring. If you are teaching either hybrid or online as well, Whiteboard works really well with Teams in that you can start a whiteboard right in a Teams meeting and have everyone able to contribute to that whiteboard in the meeting. So that's a really nice feature of Whiteboard. Okay, so I think we might be ready to do some doing rather than just do some watching and listening. So for this part of the webinar, what I'd really like you to do is to open up Teams. Now I'm going to work in Teams on my desktop. However, you can do most of these things in Teams in a browser as well. Now, if you are working with just one screen, that tip from the beginning is if you hold down the Windows key and press the right or the left arrow, that will split your screen. So that might help you out. So let's get into Teams. If you can just give me a thumbs up if you've got Teams open. No, I know when I can keep on talking. Thanks, Leonie. Thanks, Deborah. Just while we're waiting for those few people to catch up, if anyone has any questions, don't think anyone's written any questions in the chat, but again, please feel free to come off mute and ask away if you do have some questions. Okay, I think most people, I think we might be just waiting for it. No, I reckon we're all good. Hopefully we are. Okay, so this is Teams, and I think probably most of you would have been exposed to Teams after the last few years that we've had with COVID. Yeah. So hopefully in this section you will get something new out of it. First of all, I'm going to talk about the different types of Teams, and then we'll get into some of the things that you might not know that you can do in Teams. So you're welcome to follow along, or I will give you the join code as well, so you can join the team that I create. So it's up to you whether you want to create your own test team or join the test team that I'm creating in this session. So in Teams, I've got the side here, I've got my chat, which is just for staff in the department. I've got Teams where I'm at the moment. And then because we're in education, we've got assignments as well as the other things here. So in the Teams bit, what I'm going to do first of all is I'm going to join or create a team. And then from here, I'm going to click on Create Team. Now, because we are using the Education Edition, we do have these 4 options available to us. Now, if you're using Teams with your students, we recommend that you create a class team. For any other purpose, we do not recommend these middle 2 options. We recommend that you choose Other. Now, the reason why is that with these 2 middle ones, the back end of Teams is set up quite particularly, and it makes it very hard for you to do lots of things that you might want to do in the future. So, for example, in a staff and a PLC team, they set up a OneNote, and the channels in the team are connected to sections in your OneNote. And then if you delete channels or rename channels, that mucks up the OneNote. In the staff OneNote as well, if you delete something, it's deleted forever. So we really do recommend that you stay away from these 2, even though they've got lovely names, and you just choose the Other team if you're working with staff, or class if you're wanting to use it for teaching students. So today I'm going to go in the Other team. I'm going to give it a name. Now, the other tip is that if you accidentally delete the team, it's a good idea if you've got the name with your school, starting with your school code, because if you do happen to delete it by mistake, the service desk can retrieve that team for you, but they need to be able to identify that team. So if there's 100 Miss Smith's teams, it's going to be very hard to find out which team needs to be retrieved. But if there's only one that's got your school code and Miss Smith, then that makes it easy to retrieve. The other thing to note in here is the privacy. So we always recommend that you set the team to private. There is an option to set it to public, but if you do that, that means that anybody can join without asking your permission. When I say anyone, that means anyone with an @schools email address. So that, of course, includes all our students. And there have been some not very nice cases of students finding public teams, joining and posting inappropriate comments and images in Teams. Now we know who those students are because Teams tells us who has posted those things, but it's still not a very nice experience. So we recommend that you set your team to private. Okay, so you can add members or you can skip this step. So I'm just going to skip it for the moment. And then I've got my brand new test team. Now, one of the first things we recommend when you've created a team is that you actually go in and have a look at the settings and make sure that it's set up the way that is going to work best for you and the other people that you add to your team. So to get into the settings, I go next to my team name and there's 3 dots, ellipses. And if I click there, I can click on Manage Team. Now, this home screen, Members, shows me who's in the team. And if I want to add members in here, I can do so in here as well. What I want to look at now, though, is my Settings tab. So I'm going to click in there. I can do a whole lot of things in here. So if I want to change this image, I can do that from here. I'm not going to worry about that at the moment though, because what I do want to look at is these member permissions. Now the default is that all these are turned on. However, that can cause some issues. So we do recommend that you turn some of these off, especially if you're in a team that has a large number of people. So we do recommend that you turn off this top one, which is allow members to create and update channels. That automatically will turn off allow members to create private channels. Now, private channels are interesting. Private channels are channels that you can create within a team that are separate to the rest of the team, and you need to add people to view those private channels. The reason why we suggest you turn this one off, even if you allow people to create channels, is that if you are the owner and you've allowed members to create private channels, even though you're the owner, if someone creates a private channel, you might not see that it's there if you haven't been invited to that private channel. So that can cause issues if there's all these private channels in your team that you don't know about. So definitely turn off that second option, but we would recommend as well, if it's a team with a large amount of people, that you turn off that top one as well. Allow members to delete and restore channels. Again, it's best if you turn that off to begin with. And also, if it's a large team, those next two options, we would recommend that you turn off, as well as update, create and remove tabs and connectors. Owners can delete all messages. That's a good one to leave on. That means that if someone's put something in the wrong spot, you can go in and delete it and put it in the right spot. And also, if you're dealing with adults, we suggest you leave those two on. However, if you created a class team because you're working with students, I would recommend that you turn off those two options as well, just because I have known of cases where students have written something awful about someone else, the other person's seen it, and then the person that wrote it deletes it and there's no trace. Okay, so just keep those three on. And the other thing in the settings that is quite useful to know about is this team code. So if I click here, and then if I click generate, this here gives me a code that if I share that, allows people to join this team. This can be handy if you've created a team and, for example, it's for a class, and you don't want to type in everybody's names, you can just share this code. So I'm just going to copy it and drop it in the chat. If you are sharing this code out the front of a class, for example, if you click on full screen, it will put that code nice and big, which is really handy. Also, what I would recommend is if you have shared that code, especially with students, you can then reset it or remove it so that you don't get Johnny sharing it with Ruben, who's not in your class, and suddenly Ruben joins your team. So what do I do with a team code? Let me just go back. So if you've got a team code, someone's asked you to join. If you go back into the teams and you go up to the top where it's join or create team, that second option is join a team with a code. And there is where I can enter that code and click join team. Now I can't do that because I'm already a member. But if you'd like to join my team, you are welcome to do that now, or you can carry on working in that test team. So if you did want to do that, you can copy and paste it from the chat where I've just put it. I'm just going to go back into that test team. And just check in my members again. So the 3 dots next to my team and manage team. And excellent, thank you. I've got 2 more people that have joined. Now, one other thing we do recommend is that if you created a team, you have at least 2 owners. This is again because of that winning the lotto factor. So if I suddenly won the lotto, left, and I'm the owner, no one else in the team can change any of the settings or allow people to join the team. So what we do recommend is that you have at least 2. So I'm just going to promote Maria so I can change her member to an owner, and then she's got as much power as me in this team. Now, if I've accidentally promoted the wrong person, it was supposed to be Kathy, not Maria. Again, I can go on her, change her back to a member. Sorry, Marie, you've lost your powers, and change Kathy instead. So Kathy is now an owner. Now you'll notice next to members, I've got a cross. So if Maria was no longer part of my school team, I might need to remove her from the team. So I can click that cross to remove her. However, Kathy doesn't have a cross. That's because she's an owner. So if Kathy was to leave the team and I needed to remove her from, leave the site, for example, and I needed to remove her from the team, I'd need to demote her. Sorry, Kathy, you've lost your powers, to a member again. And then I could press that cross to delete her. Maria, I'm going to promote you again to an owner so that I've got my 2 owners in there. Okay, so that's a bit about the settings and promoting and demoting members. If you do want to add members individually, you can click on the add member and type in the member's name or their email address. You'll notice it says group as well. So there are options for adding members from an existing team to a new team, for example. And I can show you some, oh dear, sorry, Maria. I can show you some resources on how to do that. I'll share those at the end of this session if that's something that you need to do. Okay, so the next bit is about channels and posting and why we might create channels and what we might do in channels. So in a team's got 2 purposes really that I see. One is that storage place for the WAV files. So I mentioned when I talked about OneDrive that being the me space. Teams is very much a we space. So everything that I'm working on with my colleagues is going to live in this team. It's going to be where I'm going to store all my files, but it's also a communication place. So channels here serve the purpose of being a place for communication. And the rule of thumb is that you should have as fewer channels as possible and keep your channels there for communication. So I have seen some incidences of teams with, I don't know, 30 channels down here. That can get really confusing because firstly, Teams limits how many you can see at a time and hides the rest. And each user, so each individual has to go through and show those teams if they want them visible. That means that if I posted a message in my channel down here that's channel 30, people might not realize that something's been posted in there. So it's fewer channels as possible and only there for communication reasons. Files, though, we suggest you keep your files in your general channel. So each channel has a spot for posts and also a spot for files. So if I was using or creating a team for my school, for example, I might have my general channel where I'm going to put all my files, my photos, my induction documents, things like that. And then I might, for example, create a channel where I want my teachers to be talking, or my colleagues or my cohort to be talking about pedagogy and teaching practice. So for that, I am going to create a channel. And to create a channel, I click on the three dots again. And this time I've got the option of add channel. So again, if you're in my team, I'd love you to create a channel. If you're working in your own team, go ahead and create a channel. So this one I'm going to call literacy. Whoops, if I can spell it right. And so that I know that it's my channel, just because this is a test team, I'm just going to put my name. So if you are creating a channel in my team, if you can just give it a name at the front and then just add your name, so just so we know it's your channel. Now, when you create a channel, this is where you've got to make that choice about whether it's a standard channel that everyone can see or a private. Again, we recommend that you keep private channels only if you need something to be private. So for example, if you have a class team and you've got a student that needs to work with an SSO, you might create a private channel for that student and that SSO, because no one else in the class will see that, but you could be posting stuff for the SSO to do with the student in that channel, and that could be where you place your work that you want the student to complete. If it's a school team, you might create a private channel, for example, for finance. But other than that, probably best if you keep channels standard. There is one other option in here, which is shared. This is fairly new, and that means that I can create a channel that people from a different team can view and add things to as well. So that one's quite handy, but I'm not going to go into that one today. So I'm keeping it standard and I'm going to press add. And because it's a general channel, a standard, I don't have to add everybody. Everybody can see that. Okay, so now I've got my channel, there's a few things that I can do. So I've got this purple button down here, and if I press on there, first of all, just like in my chat, I can start writing something. So welcome to the team. And you will know that in Teams, when you press enter, it automatically posts it. Now, if I want to write something that has more than just one line, the quickest way to do that is to press Shift Enter on your keyboard. So this is a 2-line conversation. Shift Enter. I can write more than 2 things. Spell conversation correctly. So again, this is for if you're posting messages in your team or if you're using the chat function as well. And now I press enter and I've got 2 lines. If I press new conversation again, you'll notice down the bottom I've got that A with a little pencil, and that's my formatting or editing. Again, you can do this in your chat. It looks a tiny bit different in a chat as opposed to a post, but it now gives me all those formatting items that I can use. And I do need to add a subject and something in the conversation space before it will allow me to send. So this is more important. Please read. And then, yeah, if I want to change the color of that, I can do that. If I want to make it bold, if I want to make it a heading, etc. And then post. Now, one thing you can do in a Teams post that you can't do in chat is something called an announcement. So again, new conversation, A with the pencil, and instead of new conversation, I'm going to click here and change it to an announcement. Now, announcements are really good if you want something to stand out. So, for example, if you were posting spelling words for your students, what I could do is I could create an announcement. I can go here, change it so that my spelling words always have this orange announcement banner. If I want to post my maths homework, I might choose a blue. So I can color code my announcements so that they fit the thing that I'm talking about. Again, if it's a staff team, you might want to have different announcements and different colors for different types of things. So if it's a daybook announcement, I might have blue. If it's about fire drills or emergencies or something like that, I might choose a different color. So again, I need to put in a heading. This is very important. I do need to put in a subheading. And there's a couple of extra things I can do as well before I press send. So along the top, I've got a couple of options. So if I'm posting to a team with lots of people and it's a really important announcement, I might not want people to be able to reply to that. So if I click here, I can change to only you and moderators can reply. That means you and the owners of the team. So that might be handy, especially if you've got a class team. And the other thing is posting multiple channels. So if you're a member of multiple teams and you need the same information to go out to multiple teams. So you might be a specialist teacher that's teaching year 6 French, and you're teaching it to 3 different year 6 classes. If I want to, I could go select channels and all the teams that I'm a member of appear here, and I can just choose what other teams I need to post that announcement to and click update. And then I can just create the one announcement and it will post to all these teams. I'm just going to delete them because I don't want them in those teams, but you get the idea. If you allow people to reply, they can only see the replies in the team they're in. They don't see everyone's replies from different teams. So that's quite handy and a bit of a time saver if you're involved in multiple teams and you need the same information posted in multiple teams. The last feature before I press send is this one here. So this one here allowed us to change the color. This one here allows us to choose an illustration or upload an image. So again, these are a bit of fun, especially if you're using it with students, but even if you're using it with adults, you could pick the same background so that you've got consistency. So for example, if it's a message about computers or digital technology, I might choose this banner. And then when I'm ready, I hit send or enter. And there it is, and you can see it stands out a lot more. Okay, well, we've run out of time. Hopefully you can stay on for a couple more minutes because I'm just going to end the session by showing you some resources that you can access to take your learning a bit further. Hopefully as well you've got something out of today's session. So again, these resources are on the end of that training summary. but I do like to highlight them as well. So the first one is the Microsoft Learn Educator Centre. So this is a free place you can go. It's run by Microsoft and it has lots of resources on all the Microsoft applications, not just the ones that we've spoken about today. Microsoft Learn is for everyone, but there's a special educator centre that has product guides and learning paths, which is especially for educators. Do suggest that you sign in, because when you sign in, it tracks what you've done and you can record your training and get certificates, which is helpful for teacher registration. The last resource I'm going to quickly share with you, and again, this is in that training summary, is my team's YouTube channel. So we've got lots of different videos. Most of them are quite short. So this is the Microsoft 365 playlist, and you can see there's a few long ones, but most of them are really short, and they show you how to do something specific, and it's relevant to how Microsoft acts in our tenancy. So please have a look at that. If, however, there's something that you don't know how to do and you can't find how to do it, the last place is that you're welcome to join is the M365 App Support and Collaboration team. Again, there is a join code in that training summary for this team. This team has got lots of members from all over the department, teachers and corporate and SSOs. And if you've got a question about one of the apps, you can pop it in here, and either myself, someone from my team, or another teacher or SSO or someone in the system will be able to respond to you. So that's another good place to go if you're looking for information. So thank you everyone for joining in. Again, please feel free to ask me any questions. I will stay on the line for a little bit longer, but I will stop the recording now. So thank you.